10-year-old boy buys a sick horse at auction. What happens next will amaze you. It was a brisk, cloudy morning when 10-year-old Jack stood in the middle of a bustling auction yard, his heart pounding. Around him, grown men and women were all focused on the horses being paraded in front of them. They had years of experience in the world of horses, their eyes sharp and calculating, ready to make bids on the animals they hoped would bring them a fortune, a champion, or just a good companion for the farm. But Jack wasn't like them. He was just a boy, a regular kid who'd spent his summer days playing with friends and dreaming of adventure. Today, though, he was about to step into a world he had only read about in books and watched on TV. Jack had always loved animals, particularly horses. Ever since he was little, he'd been fascinated by their beauty, their strength, and their grace. But there was one thing that had always stuck with him. He loved helping those who were hurting. When Jack's parents brought him to this auction, it wasn't for fun or games. Jack had his mind set on one horse in particular, a horse no one else seemed to want. The old mare had been brought to the auction by a rancher who was looking to sell her off. She was sick, frail, and her coat was dull. But in Jack's eyes, she wasn't just any horse. She was a soul in need of help, and Jack knew deep down that he had to try to save her. As the auctioneer's voice boomed over the loudspeakers, Jack stood on his tiptoes, barely able to see over the crowd of adults, all eager to make their bids. He could feel the excitement in the air, the tension as the bidding started to pick up pace. But Jack wasn't worried about the other bidders. He had a plan, a small amount of money saved up from his chores and odd jobs. It wasn't much, but it was enough to take a chance on the horse he believed could be saved. The moment came. The mare was led into the ring, her eyes dull, her body weak. Jack's heart sank a little, but he stood tall. This was the moment. His mother had warned him not to expect too much. "It's a big world, Jack," she'd said. "A lot of people don't have the time or the resources to help every animal they see. But if you're serious about this, we'll support you." And so, with that, Jack felt a weight settle on his shoulders. This was his responsibility now. The bidding began. One by one, the adult bidders made their offers, the numbers climbing higher and higher. Jack stood still, trying to stay calm, his fingers nervously tapping the side of his jeans. The others were outbidding him, their offers making it seem impossible that he'd ever stand a chance. Yet, Jack held on. He believed in the mare, and he believed that he could make a difference. So, with a deep breath, he raised his hand, his small voice trembling as he called out a bid. To his surprise, the auctioneer paused, scanning the crowd. The auction room went quiet for a moment, all eyes on the young boy standing with determination in his eyes. His offer wasn't big, but it was enough to spark a reaction. The crowd around him started murmuring, some in disbelief, some in amusement. Jack felt a wave of anxiety wash over him, but he didn't let it show. He had come this far. There was no turning back now. The next few moments felt like an eternity. The auctioneer's gavel hovered in the air, ready to fall. Jack's heart raced faster with each passing second. And then, to everyone's surprise, the gavel came down with a sharp crack, signaling the sale of the stick mare to Jack. The crowd erupted in whispers, some congratulatory, others doubtful. But none of that mattered to Jack. He had done it. He had saved her. As he watched the mare being led out of the auction ring, his excitement quickly turned to worry. What had he just done? How could a 10-year-old boy care for a sick horse, especially one that was so far gone? He had no experience in healing horses. He barely knew where to start, but there was something in him, something strong and deep, that told him he couldn't back down now. This was his responsibility, and he was going to make it work. The mare's new home was a small, modest barn on Jack's family farm. It wasn't much, but it was all they had. As Jack watched the horse settle in, he couldn't help but feel a mixture of excitement and fear. He had no idea how to help her, how to make her better. But the first step was clear. He would try. He would try no matter what. He would give her food, care, and love. But would that be enough? Could a young boy and his family truly heal a horse that seemed so broken? As the days went on, Jack kept a close eye on the mare. He did everything he could think of, consulting books, watching videos online, even asking the local vet for advice. But the horse's condition didn't seem to improve. Her coat remained patchy, her energy low, and her health seemed to be getting worse. Jack's heart grew heavier with each passing day. He knew he couldn't do it alone. But just when things seemed darkest, something extraordinary began to happen. One morning, Jack awoke to find the mare standing at the edge of her stall, her eyes brighter than they had been in weeks. She was eating a little more, mooking a little more. It wasn't much, but it was a sign. A sign that maybe, just maybe, the love and care Jack had been giving her were starting to make a difference. The transformation that began to unfold was something that no one could have predicted. What started as a small act of kindness from a determined boy turned into something far greater, a journey of healing, hope, and unexpected miracles. But Jack had no idea that the journey he was about to embark on would take him far beyond what he could ever imagine. What happens next will leave you stunned. Keep watching to see how this remarkable story unfolds. As the days passed, Jack continued to care for the mare with an unwavering sense of purpose. He spent hours at the barn, brushing her coat, feeding her hay, and even talking to her, as if she could understand every word he said. His family had always been supportive, but they couldn't help but notice the toll it was taking on him. His friends from school, once eager to hang out and play, slowly drifted away. They didn't understand why Jack was so consumed by this sick horse. To them, it seemed like an impossible task, a waste of time that could be spent doing something more fun. But Jack wasn't bothered by their teasing. He knew what he had to do. His mother, though, had begun to worry. "Jack," she said one evening as she sat with him in the kitchen, "you're working so hard on this horse. But you need to remember, sometimes things don't turn out the way we want them to. You've done everything you can, but you might have to let go." Jack had nodded but said nothing. He didn't want to hear it. He couldn't give up on her, not when she was so close to breaking through. The mare had started showing small signs of improvement, but it wasn't enough. Her body was weak, and Jack feared she might not make it. Despite his best efforts, he couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. The vet, Dr. Collins, had come by a few times to check on the mare. He was an older man with a gentle demeanor, but even he seemed doubtful. "She's in bad shape, Jack," he'd said after one of his visits, scratching his head as he examined the mare. "Her chances of recovery are slim. It might be time to face the reality." But Jack refused to hear it. There were nights when Jack couldn't sleep, tossing and turning in his bed, his mind racing with thoughts of the mare. What if he was too late? What if she couldn't make it through? The pressure weighed heavily on him, and yet something inside him kept pushing forward. He had to save her. He just had to. One evening, a month after the auction, something strange happened. Jack went to the barn after school, as he did every day, but when he walked in, he froze. The mare was standing by the door of her stall, her eyes wide, her body trembling. She had a look of pure panic in her gaze, as if she could sense something was wrong. Jack's heart skipped a beat. What was happening? Before he could react, the mare suddenly bolted, her hooves pounding against the floor as she charged toward the far end of the barn. Jack's heart raced, and he rushed after her, calling her name. But the mare was frantic, her energy wild and unpredictable. As Jack reached the back of the barn, he saw what had caused the panic. The old wooden wall, which had been in place for decades, had begun to splinter and crack. It was as if the barn itself was falling apart. In that moment, Jack realized that his family's farm was in trouble. The barn wasn't just falling apart physically, it was a reflection of something deeper, something that had been building for a long time. The farm was struggling financially. His parents were trying to keep everything afloat, but it was becoming increasingly difficult. The money they had saved for emergencies was running low, and there were rumors that the bank might foreclose on the property if they couldn't get back on their feet. Jack's parents had never spoken about it in front of him, but he had overheard their conversations late at night. They were doing their best to protect him from the reality of the situation, but Jack knew the truth. It wasn't just the mare that needed saving. His whole family, their livelihood, was at risk. As the mare's panic subsided, Jack stood frozen in place, staring at the barn wall. He knew what he had to do. The farm needed money. The mare needed a chance. But Jack wasn't sure if he could make it all work. The idea of selling the mare crossed his mind, but he immediately pushed it away. He couldn't do that, not after everything he had been through with her. But what other option did he have? The days leading up to the local fair were filled with tension. Jack spent every free moment at the barn, working to rebuild the stall, fixing the leaks, and patching the wall as best as he could. The mare was still weak, but there were signs of hope. Her coat was starting to shine again, and her movements were becoming less stiff. It wasn't enough, though. She needed more than just time. She needed a miracle. Jack knew that. One evening as he sat in the barn, feeling more exhausted than ever, his father came to join him. They didn't speak much, but there was an understanding between them. Jack had seen his father work tirelessly over the years to keep the farm running, and now He was seeing how hard it was to keep it all together. "You know, Jack," his father said quietly, "I've been thinking about the mare. We might have to face facts. If we don't sell her or find a way to make some money soon, we could lose everything. Your mom and I, we've been holding on, but we might not be able to keep the farm. You know that, right?" Jack swallowed hard, the weight of the words sinking in. He could feel the tears welling up, but he refused to let them fall. He wasn't ready to give up, not on the mare, and not on the farm. As the local fair approached, Jack's parents sat him down and asked him what he thought about entering the mare in a competition. It wasn't an easy decision. The mare was far from perfect, but Jack was determined. The prize money from the fair could help pay some bills, and maybe, just maybe, it could give the mare a shot at being more than just an ordinary horse. The competition would be fierce, with some of the best riders and trainers in the area, but Jack was determined to give it his all. The day of the fair arrived, and Jack stood by the entrance, feeling a mix of nerves and excitement. The mare had come a long way, but Jack knew it wouldn't be easy. He took a deep breath, adjusting his hat, and led the mare into the ring. The crowd fell silent as they sized her up, her coat still a little rough around the edges, her body thinner than it should have been. But Jack didn't care. He had faith in her. And then, as the competition began, something unexpected happened. The mare, despite everything, seemed to shine. She moved gracefully, her steps light and confident. Jack's heart soared as he guided her through the paces. The crowd watched in awe, unsure of what they were seeing. Could this horse really be the same stick animal that had been auctioned off weeks ago? But as the final moments of the competition drew near, Jack saw something in the mare's eyes that made his heart stop. Fear. Something was wrong. The tension in the air was thick, and Jack knew that this moment could make or break everything. What would happen next would change the course of their journey forever, and Jack's life would never be the same again. As Jack steered the mare through the final stretch of the competition, the air around them seemed to freeze. Her steps, once graceful, became hesitant. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, and Jack could feel the weight of their eyes on him. Something wasn't right. The mare's eyes darted nervously, her body trembling ever so slightly, and Jack's heart skipped a beat. He had never seen her like this before, not after all the work they'd done together. She had come so far, but now, in front of this crowd, it felt like everything was slipping away. Suddenly, the mare stumbled, and Jack's breath caught in his throat. A gasp rose from the crowd as they watched the horse falter, her legs wobbling. Jack held his breath, fear taking over as he instinctively pulled the reins to steady her. She seemed to regain her balance, but the damage had been done. The judges were already whispering among themselves, their faces unreadable. Jack's mind raced. He had never felt more helpless. This was his moment, his chance to prove that he could make a difference, that the work, the love, the sacrifices, everything had been worth it. But now, it felt like it was all unraveling in front of him. Was it possible that after everything they had gone through, this was how it would end? The mare wasn't just sick anymore, she was scared, confused. And Jack didn't know how to fix that. But then, something unexpected happened. As the mare took another step, she turned her head slightly and looked at Jack. There was a quiet understanding in her gaze. It was as if she was telling him not to give up on her now, not when they were so close. The connection between them was stronger than ever. Jack could feel it deep in his heart, a surge of love and determination that he had never known before. With renewed focus, Jack gently guided the mare, his voice calm and steady as he whispered to her, reassuring her that they could finish this together. The mare seemed to listen, and with a surprising burst of energy, she picked up her pace. The crowd watched in stunned silence as Jack and the mare moved in perfect harmony. It was as if they had become one, their bond undeniable. As they crossed the finish line, the crowd erupted in applause, but Jack barely heard them. His heart was pounding in his chest, and he could hardly believe what had just happened. The mare, who had once seemed like a lost cause, had found her strength once again. And so had he. They had made it. Against all odds, they had done it together. The judges called Jack and the mare forward, their faces softening as they acknowledged the incredible effort they had just witnessed. They may not have won first place, but the performance was unlike anything anyone had expected. The judges were clearly impressed. One of them, an older woman with silver hair, leaned down and smiled at Jack. "You've done something remarkable here," she said, her voice kind. "This horse, she's not just an animal. She's a survivor, and so are you." Jack's heart swelled with pride, but he wasn't thinking about the applause or the praise. His mind was focused on something else, the mare, the journey, and what it meant to him. He had saved her, yes, but in doing so, she had saved him too. In the face of all the doubts, the struggles, and the fears, they had made it. Together, they had proved that love, determination, and belief in one another could overcome even the greatest obstacles. As Jack led the mare back to the barn that evening, his father walked alongside him, his expression softer than Jack had ever seen it. "You did it, son," he said, his voice filled with pride. "You didn't give up, even when things seemed impossible. I'm proud of you." Jack smiled up at his father, feeling a sense of relief and accomplishment wash over him. He had given everything for the mare, for his family, and for the farm. And in the end, it had paid off. The farm's financial troubles were far from over, but something had shifted. The mare's transformation, her strength, her will to survive, those were the things that mattered now. The rest could wait. In the months that followed, the mare continued to thrive under Jack's care. Her health improved, and her once dull coat became vibrant once again. Word spread about the boy and his miraculous recovery of the sick horse, and the local community rallied around Jack and his family. People offered support in ways Jack never expected, helping with the farm, donating to keep the property afloat, and even offering to buy the mare for a fair price. But Jack couldn't imagine selling her. She was more than just a horse to him now. She was family. She was proof that, no matter how difficult life might seem, there was always a chance for redemption, a chance for a new beginning. Looking back, Jack realized that this journey had taught him more than he could have ever imagined. It wasn't just about staving a horse. It was about believing in something bigger than himself, about fighting for what was right, even when the odds were stacked against him. And it was about the power of love, connection, and resilience, which had overcome even the darkest times. Jack and the mare had both come a long way, and together they had found something worth fighting for. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy, but they had learned that with determination, hope, and a little bit of faith, anything was possible. As the sun set on the farm, Jack stood outside the barn, looking at the mare grazing peacefully in the field. A sense of peace settled over him. He knew that whatever came next, he was ready for it. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, Jack felt confident that he could face anything, just as long as he had his family, his farm, and his mare by his side. The journey wasn't over, but Jack had already learned the most important lesson of all. Never give up, no matter how hard the road ahead may seem.